All right. Well, I want to continue on with a topic today that involves teleporting. Let me get a share screen going here. So sometimes it's kind of a hard slog across our vast landscapes. So we might want the capability of teleporting from one place to another. We can wire this up similarly to the way we did the pickups and the damage items. We have an object with a collider that's set to be as trigger. It has a rigid body that's set to be as kinematic, and we have a script teleport that's going to send our player someplace else when they enter the trigger. One could script this to teleport to a specific location, a vector 3 location in the world coordinates. But in many ways, it's easier to place an object where we want to go and have the teleport go to the location of that object. And this is the method that we'll use. We'll have a teleport from object, and perhaps we'll have several teleport to objects in our scene. I'll have an exposed variable here with an array of objects to teleport to. In Awake, I'll catch the number of items that I populate that array with. And in the onTrigger function, onTrigger enter, I'll check to see if the collider is my player. If so, I'll throw a random number in the range 0 to number -1. And I'll simply set my player's transform position to the teleport to objects transform position, the one that we've picked. So this is all very simple. Here's an example of this. The pink cylinder is my teleport from object. It has an array that's populated with the teleport to objects. Let me maximize here. And I can run around and I'll pop out of any of the different teleport to objects where I get where I want to go. That's all well and good, but the teleport effect is kind of plain. We can add some sparks and some noise. So I'll add a poofer, public variable for some particle effect that I want to play. And I'll also add an audio clip, a sound file that I want to play. I've got some whooshing noise that I'll play. The Awake is the same. The onTrigger enter now has a play audio clip function. That's one we'll write ourselves that plays the clip at the position of the teleport to object. And I'll also instantiate that poofer at that position with that orientation. So with those modifications, now I have a bunch of teleport to objects. And I know you can't hear the sound, but it's playing a whooshing noise. I'll let you see that when you play with the game folder. Now, the play audio clip function takes the audio clip and its position and the volume. It makes a new game object called one-shot audio. It puts it at the position of the teleport to object. It adds an audio source to it, add component. It adds the clip to that source. It sets the volume of that source, and it plays that source and then destroys the one-shot audio after the clip length is played. Very simple. So that's all well and good, but the teleportation is kind of quick. I'd like some delay. Plus, I don't really want my scene all cluttered up with teleport to objects. I'd like them to be invisible until they're used. And so in this next version, teleport to, I'm going to add a private float delay. I'm going to use this to freeze my character so that the character doesn't just walk out of the teleport to device, but is actually frozen in there for a certain amount of time while the sparks go off and things happen. So now in the, and also I've added a shadow object. That's just something to cast a shadow of my teleport to object. In the awake, I'm going to set the delay to be 25% of the clip length. So the sound's going to play beyond when I'm held there. The usual stuff here. I'm going to go through my, in the awake here, I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn off the mesh renderers and the capsule colliders of the teleport to objects. So this happens at awake, and so when the scene starts, the teleport to objects will be made invisible. Their mesh render is turned off, and I don't want to run into these invisible objects, so their capsule collider is also turned off, and the shadows are turned off. I don't want an invisible object casting shadows. So an on trigger enter, I'm going to catch the animator and rigid body component of my player. If the colliding object is the player, I'm going to catch the animator and the rigid body. The rest of this here is the usual stuff. Play audio clip, instantiate the poofer, put the character at the teleport to position. But I'm also going to set my is kinematic to be true. So the rigid body is no longer going to be able to fall. And I'm also going to disable my animator. So the thing that makes my character walk around is going to be turned off. The animator will be disabled. I also want to be able to see my teleport to device now. So I'm going to enable its render, enable its collider, and enable the shadows as well. I'm going to wait a certain amount of time, that 1/4 of the audio clip length. And then after waiting, I'll turn back on the animator, set the is kinematic back to false again, and then disable the mesh renderer for the shadows, the teleport to object, and its collider. So now I have, this is scene 2. So now I have pretty much the same thing. You'll notice that the teleport to devices are missing. Or well, they're there, but they're invisible. Their colliders are turned off, so I can walk through them. When I go into one of my teleport from objects, it goes to it. The character is frozen while in there. I can. So even though I'm pressing the arrow key, nothing's happening. It does rotate. I haven't figured out how to turn that one off yet. It's part of the Ethan's script that he rotates even if I don't want him to. So that's all pretty cool. Now, Um, in the Unity particle pack, that big place that has hundreds of particles, there was a really cool dissolve effect where the material gradually disappeared and there were sparks and smoke and other kinds of stuff. And that dissolve effect comes with a script called spawn effect. It has exposed variables for the effect time, a pause time, an animation curve for how the effect is going to fade in, and a dissolved material that we're going to put on our teleport to object that has a custom shader. In start, we're going to the script is initially disabled. I'm not disabling it here, but it's initially disabled. In start, I'm going to, that'll run when I do enable it from my script. We'll get the particle system and play it. So whatever particle system is involved here. I'm also going to identify the custom shader property that I'm going to modify. That's the cutoff. And I'm going to set my particle duration to be the spawn effect time. I did find minor modifications were necessary so that the particle effect would play repeatedly. I wanted to be able to reuse these effects, and without this, if particle system is stopped, play it. So this tests to see if the particle effect is stopped, in which case it restarts it. And I also changed the play to stop here for various reasons. Here's the, we're setting the float, the shader property with a renderer material set float. We're using that curve that we're evaluating at a particular time and using the inverse lerp to give us that time from the timer. The timer is up here just accumulating delta times. Reset shader is something that we'll use later in our script to reset the shader so that it's ready to go again when we come back and revisit our teleport 2 object. So teleport 3, we need arrays for the spawn effect scripts that are on all of our teleport 2 objects. And I'm also going to cache a copy of the spawn time so that I don't have to get component or do anything fancy with them. In Awake, I'm going to declare those arrays with a number of items. I'm going to populate the arrays with get component spawn effect, and the spawn times are going to be those spawn effect times. And at this point, I'm going to I'm going to disable all of the spawn scripts. So they should be turned off, but I'm going to be sure they're turned off by doing this in the awake function. The on-trigger enter has a lot of the same stuff that we had in teleport 2. I've left it out. The parts that I have to change, I need to enable my spawn script, the spawn effect script that I'm picking with the random number 2. This time I'm going to wait the spawn times, how long the effect is set to go. And when I'm done with that, then I can re-enable my animator and set my isKinetic back to false again, reset the shader, and disable the spawn2 script that I had enabled up there. The reset shader, remember, is that public method in the spawn effect script that sets the shader property back to 0 again. And the play audio clip, of course, is the same. So now Also, that shadow cylinder, which was had its renderer turned off, it was just there to cast a shadow. I've put a transparent material on it so that it is visible. But at any rate, here we go. They're all invisible. I run into the thing and I get this crinkly effect. I think I've set it up so that if it doesn't have a poofer, it only uses the particle effect. But I could also have my own particle effect on there. There is a slot for it. So pretty cool. So I'm going to stop the share screen at this point and end the video. I'll see you all in class. Bye.